I hear this all the time. I want to be that soft, sweet, gentle mother. But why is it that what so often comes out is brash, annoyed, and sharp? Why does the smallest mess or meltdown feel like it pulls the ugly right out of me? And it's because patience isn't supposed to come naturally. It's something that you're sanctified into. Yes, some women have a natural propensity to be more gentle and patient, but in the most stressful of situations, even the sweetest, gentle women will crumble. It's called our flesh for a reason. We have to learn to deny the flesh, deny what feels good, and do instead what feels foreign, like being patient and gentle when we want to snap. So it's in these stressful moments when you learn to deny your natural inclination to be harsh and instead choose gentleness that you will actually rewire your brain to be that soft, sweet, gentle mom. And then suddenly your natural inclination changes from brash to gentle and patient. And you've become sanctified in this area. That's how it works. It's a beautiful thing. So today I am sharing small 1-minute habits that you can transform the way that you respond to your children in stressful situations. And trust me, these are simple but powerful shifts that you can make. If you're new here, I'm Kiri and I help Christian homemakers who are living in a fog of exhaustion and stress to become the patient, peaceful mother and wife that they've always dreamt of being, while creating a joyful, nurturing home. So I'd love for you to subscribe to my channel. So let's first look biblically at impatience, because patience is a fruit of the Spirit, and we know that it's attainable in all scenarios. But how do we win this spiritual battle? Well, sometimes our impatience as a mother is caused by confusion on how to handle a situation, but we are told that the Lord is faithful and will give us wisdom. 1 Corinthians 10:13 explains that when you're battling temptation, God will provide a way out. No temptation has overtaken you except what is common to mankind, and God is faithful. He will not let you be tempted beyond what you can bear. But when you are tempted, He will provide a way out so that you can endure it. So when you feel trapped in the moment, like your patience is gone, just stop and do what I do. I whisper the same thing every time. Lord, show me a way out. And you'll be surprised at how often a new perspective or just a softened heart on the situation, or even just a practical solution, just suddenly comes to your mind. And that is how the Holy Spirit can work in your life as a mother. But sometimes words don't feel like enough. And that's when I turn to this next 1-minute habit. The key to patience isn't necessarily willpower, rather perspective. And this is truly so freeing. In the heat of the moment, frustration feels justified, right? I know there are times when I am so mad about the sin of my child that I start justifying yelling or any other sin that I might turn to cope with that stressful situation. And now I use this recognition of my justification as my cue to stop, pray, and do this next 1-minute habit. Sometimes when you are flooded with anger and impatience in motherhood, simply looking at your children as the blessings that they are can totally transform your heart. So instead of towering over my child and correcting them from a distance, I will get down on their level. And this is key. Gently hold their cheeks in my hands and I look into their eyes, and I will tell you, it's so hard to stay frustrated or even worse, in a fit of rage when you are this close to your little blessings that God has entrusted to you. And when you can see that innocence in their little face and hold their chubby little cheeks in your hands, it's this simple shift, and it turns discipline into connection, and it'll turn your anger into a softened heart. So hold their cheeks in your hands, look them in the eyes, and you'll just see their big eyes you will have a softened heart. And if you struggle with gentleness in your tone in those moments, then you can try this next 1 minute habit, which is to try singing instead. I know it sounds silly, but that's kind of the point. It's hard to be angry and mean when you're singing. So when I want to give direction without frustration, then I sing to the tune of Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Stars. Instead of, put your shoes on, we have to go, or, however else I might say that when I'm frustrated, I will sing it. Shoes on, little child, put your shoes on, it's time to go. And I don't always get the tune perfectly right. That's irrelevant. It's besides the point. You don't have to get the tune perfectly right. But if you're, trying to sing what you're saying, it's going to be really hard to sound frustrated when you're singing. So there's just something about singing that makes it nearly impossible to sound irritated. Now, sometimes though, thinking of the tune of Twinkle Twinkle or any other song is just too much in the heat of the moment, and I totally get that. And that is when I turn to this next 1 minute habit. Yelling gets ignored, and it also disconnects you from your children. But whispering, now that can be super effective. So whenever I feel the inclination to yell, I will use this recognition as my cue to actually do the opposite and whisper. Sometimes just the change in your tone of voice can be just as satisfying as yelling because, let's be real, sin feels good in the moment, right? It's just the aftermath that doesn't feel so good. But in the moment, it feels good. So yelling can often feel like a release. But if you look at why yelling helps to unload frustration, it's obviously not because you want to harm your child, but rather the shift in tone is just powerful. So here's the deal. Yelling isn't the only way to create that shift. Whispering can be just as satisfying and effective and without breaking fellowship with your child. So it's almost impossible to sound harsh when whispering, not impossible. So instead of escalating tension in the home, when you're whispering, you're inviting connection. Not only does this force you to slow down, but children actually lean in when you whisper. So what I do is I'll say, honey, and I'm like saying it in kind of a whisper, but I want you to hear it on the mic. So I'm not going to whisper as much as I normally would, but I'll say, honey, can you see my eyes? Or I make it funny by saying, look deep into my eyes. Can you see them? Okay, here's what I need you to do. And then I give them the direction from there. So that moment though, when you can feel your patience just snap. There is a moment. It's like you have a fork in the road and you can choose patience or you can choose to snap. So what if I told you that there is a way to prepare for it before that moment even comes? Imagine spending 1 minute practicing patience before the situation even arises. Take a moment to visualize your usual triggers, those situations where you lose your patience. Maybe it's your child throwing food or not picking up their toys or any number of things. Imagine that trigger. Now, picture yourself responding differently. You take a deep breath, pray, and actually respond with gentleness. The more you practice this mental shift, the easier it becomes when you're in the moment. This works because of something called neuroplasticity. God made our brains in a way that we can literally rewire them to respond differently. The truth is that you can actually become a different person if you want to be. If you're curious to learn more about how this works, I have a whole free workshop where I dive deeper into how homemakers can apply this to their daily life. So you can check that out using the link below. Sometimes I still need a deeper heart shift though, and that's when I turn to this next 1 minute habit. If you want to instantly change your heart around an issue with your children, you'll want to memorize this poem. And it goes like this. There are children in my home, how blessed can I be? There are children in my home. I'll act as if the Lord is with me because he is right there in the room. So whenever I feel frustration rising, I try to have the presence of mind to quietly say the poem, and it'll totally change my perspective entirely. It's amazing how a simple phrase or poem like that can shift your heart in an instant. But sometimes I need more than a reminder, and I need God's truth to anchor me. The enemy loves a weary and discouraged mother. And that's why I keep a Bible with specific verses tabbed so that I can quickly turn to them. And I have little notes next to them to remind me of things like, don't let the enemy steal your joy in motherhood. And I keep this Bible on my counter at all times so that I can just flip to whatever verse is tabbed. And the tabs have little notes to prompt me on what it's regarding. So the tab will be labeled anger, and then I can flip to that, and then it'll have the Bible verse highlighted. So whenever I feel tensions rising, I grab it, flip to the tab, and let truth reframe my heart. But what happens when you aren't by your Bible? Gratitude is always accessible in these moments. And when I am in the habit of expressing gratitude frequently, my days just seem to go a lot smoother. And my favorite way to do this is something that I call the one big, one small gratitude practice. And I talk about this in my course, but here's how you do it. You stop and think of two things that you're grateful for. One big and one small, just kind of mundane thing. I know it's not that profound, but the effect that it has will be if you do it correctly. So let me give you an example of how I do it so that it has a really big impact on your life. Okay, so here's an example of how I might do this. My big one is I'm just so grateful for my children's laughter. It's so adorable when they all get going at the same time and they're just all living such a joyful childhood. And it's such a blessing for me to listen to the fun that they're having. And yeah, they're just so cute. Their little giggles. Okay, and then my small gratitude is the hot cup of coffee that I had this morning. It was so delicious and rich and exactly how I like it. And I love that I can look forward to a nice warm cup of coffee every morning. So you can see how I'm really gushing over each topic, and that is the ticket. So if you're just like, I'm grateful for my kids and I'm grateful for coffee, that's not going to do much. But if you take the full minute, take a full minute and think specifically about what you're grateful for and then really romanticize it, that's going to have a big impact. So let's be real though, sometimes the problem isn't just you, but did you know that our children aren't sinless? I'm sure you're aware of that. But just when you think everything is going smoothly with your children, they hit this streak of constant disobedience, and you're left wondering, who is this child? I think it's probably totally normal for our children to fall into these cycles of constant disobedience or just not listening or not doing the things that they know they're supposed to do. And we were recently in this cycle, and I felt the frustration rising in me every time I had to tell my child to do something or not do something that I knew that child knew to do or not do. So I started this little trick. I call it the praise prayer sandwich. So before you correct, offer a praise. After you correct, say a prayer together. It's super simple, but it'll have a huge impact and it'll make you feel like less of a nag. And I think that one of the problems with moms is that when our children are in this cycle of just constant disobedience for whatever reason, there could be a million different reasons, the mother gets also into the cycle of constant correction. And then it makes us angry because we're like, this is not the mom I want to be, but you're making me be this kind of mom, right? If you would just be the perfect child, then I could be the perfect mother. But then that kind of perpetuates itself and it creates this really toxic cycle where you are not the mother you want to be. And so by reframing the way that you correct your child and praising before and then praying after and sandwiching that correction in between the two, it's really creating an opportunity for connection and discipleship. So it goes something like this. Hey buddy, I love how creative you are. Please remember to clean up your creations before walking away. And then you'll pray about it. And that just softens the words and it keeps their heart open to that correction. So it's just more effective in general. All right, and speaking of wise words, let me share a game changer for you. Trust me, you are going to want to add this to your cart right away because it is so helpful for biblical correction. There's a little booklet that I hang on my fridge, and it's called Wise Words for Moms by Ginger Hubbard. It's a quick reference guide for turning discipline moments into discipleship moments. Whenever I need truth instead of frustration to lead my words, I turn to Wise Words for Moms. It seriously feels like cheating when I use this. So I have an example. The other day, we had an issue regarding selfishness, and I had made sourdough bread for a guest that we were having over, and I sent the rest of the bread home with that guest. And one of my children didn't want them to take our bread, and instead of getting frustrated and letting my embarrassment of that behavior prevent me from taking advantage of this discipleship opportunity, I whipped out Wise Words and I prepped for my little lesson, and I thumbed to the selfishness section, and then I was able to have just a great teaching moment. And I felt so good afterward, and so did he. And I was actually grateful for the opportunity that the Lord gave me to teach him this lesson, even though it was embarrassing when that child was crying about my guest taking the bread that I was giving her. Rather than letting that embarrassment cloud how I responded to the situation, I ended up being just so grateful that the Lord gave me this opportunity to teach that child this lesson. So that's the power of biblical reproof, is that you can leave a disciplined situation feeling good and even better than if it hadn't happened in the first place, if you do it properly. Rather than feeling icky, like you have to spend all this time restoring fellowship because you lost your cool on your child. Sometimes it's not about changing yourself, it's about changing your surroundings. As mothers, we have a superpower, and it's called setting the tone of the home. I've noticed that even the smallest shift in the environment of my home can change the entire atmosphere in such a good way. So in the same way that taking a rejected toy that your children no longer find interesting and moving it to another area of the home can reinvigorate their delight for that toy, making little shifts in your environment can brighten up the whole day. So turn on worship music, light a candle, open all the windows in the house and let fresh air flood the house. All these little things sound so small, but environment shapes mood. And so you get to use this little trick to create the exact environment you want. But sometimes none of this will help. Sometimes you are at your breaking point as a mother, and no 1 minute habit will change that. And that's when you step away. Understand that you are not trapped in situations like this. You are allowed to leave the room. Take a breath, maybe thumb through a cookbook, sip your coffee, sit by the fire, or just step outside in the fresh air. Write a page in a journal, pray. This isn't avoiding motherhood. It's refreshing yourself so that you can mother well. I think that moms sometimes feel victim to the chaos, but that's a lie. You can leave for a minute to calm yourself down and feel empowered to come back, showing up as just a more confident, warm, gentle, and patient mother. Mothering well isn't dependent on your environment. It's dependent on how you utilize the tools that you are provided. Patience and gentleness isn't something that we just magically wake up with one day. It is rewired in your brain, one small habit, one prayer, and one good decision at a time. So tell me in the comments which of these habits stood out to you most. And please don't forget to subscribe for more encouragement in your homemaking journey. You can be the gentle and patient mom that you long to be. And if you'd like more help on this journey, I would love for you to join my free homemaking workshop using the link below. And if you're interested in learning more about overcoming motherhood anger, you can watch this next video.